Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and another episode of Prolific People. Thank you very much for joining us, and I'm happy to introduce Jack Jiggens, another member of Property Experts podcast. We had his business partner on last week, Ben, and so he said we need to talk to Jack and have an interview with him. So here we are. Jack is actually on holiday at the moment, so I seem to be interrupting people's Sundays or the holidays, but we really appreciate you for joining us, Jack. So welcome.
Absolute pleasure. Entrepreneurs are always on.
Yeah, exactly. 24/7, right? And we're different time zones. It's a bit dark behind me here, and it's early morning for you over there. So we've got plenty of time to get this one done. But do you want to start by introducing yourself, who you are and what you do?
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much for having me on, Tom, and loving the content you've been putting out there and the people you've been interviewing. Obviously, Ben, my business partner, but myself, I'm obviously Jack Jiggens, the other half of Ben. We run a property development company based in the south of England, which we built and set up from scratch, and we develop sites of all sorts of different shapes and sizes, land, mixed use, residential, commercial, whatever it may be. And we've built that to about a 35 million rolling revenue into that company. We've also set up a measured building and topographical surveying company with Ben and myself. I also have my own property investment and development business, which was operating before XP Property, and I run a management lettings company with my brother called Central Suite. So an array and a few hats to be wearing, but all property related. And I suppose you could say that we've been scaling those businesses to be profitable companies requiring some or little of our own time, and we're still in the sort of growth phase for most of them.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Everything you've got going on, several businesses, and the figures are just astonishing. And we spoke to Ben about the whole development side of things of your businesses, but I think we're going to talk more about actually being a business owner, an entrepreneur, and an employer, because you do actually have 25 staff and you look quite young, right? What is it like having 25 staff? Sorry, did I say 25? 15. You've got 15 staff, and you're fairly young. So how does that feel?
Yeah, so 25 isn't far off, because across all of the businesses, I think it's about 30 staff, but half of those are within Aura Architecture, so I don't tend to lead the team on that. But in Central Suites, XP Surveys, and XP Property, obviously I am, managing director that is in charge of what hires we're making, the hiring process, and then managing that team. Our office is based in my sort of hometown, which is Henley-on-Thames in Oxfordshire. So I tend to be the one where everyone reports into me and the daily point of contact. And it's, I was never trained on how to manage staff. I've had to, I feel that management is, a lot of it is intuitive and common sense. But there's a lot of things that you can't prepare for, like communicating with different people in different ways. If you have a slightly stubborn member of staff, let them come up with the ideas, even though you've got to swallow your ego and feed the idea through them and bring it back to you. But I love it. I actually, I probably get more satisfaction from seeing a team member grow than I do see a site come from A to B and through fruition. I get a lot more satisfaction from seeing our team get the best out of themselves and grow into the company and carve their own path. So I'm thoroughly enjoying growing the teams, and hopefully they continue to grow.
But how does it feel at the end of the month when those paychecks go out, right? And you're looking at your bank balance?
Yeah, I mean, end of the month is always the time to be told, isn't it? When how have you got on in the month? We're across the main businesses. We've got XP Surveys, which is a service-based business. That's a lot more predictable, and we tend to have more money in our bank account than our outgoings at the end of the month. Sometimes it is a roller coaster, and that company is growing, so there's been a lot of reinvestment and intercompany investment to sort of get that one off the ground. So that's okay. The portfolio, which is Central Suites, is a little bit easier because we've now got 120 tenants that pay us rent every month, right. And that helps, taking the whip out of the salaries in there. But the most difficult company to cash flow, specifically from a salary perspective, is the development business. whether you have staff in that, I know other developers that have a very lean team, so they bring external consultants in. And I know developers like us that grow a team, especially sort of contracted developers. You need a big team if you're going to be growing that type of business. And it isn't easy. It's, it's not the end of the month. It's sometimes a quarter can be a bit difficult to cash flow. And you've got to remember that in development, when you see, us post, we've acquired 3 sites, our project manager, who's on, quite good money, might be working on those 3 sites for 3 years until the business sees fruition from that. Yeah. So lots of forecasting and financial planning is required when hiring. That's definitely something that needs to take place. And at the end of the month is the end of the month, and the 2 most important things in our business from a debtors and creditors perspective is make sure staff are paid, and then second to that, make sure mortgages are paid. And that is the way that we always tackle our end of month. We fairly recently, probably about a year ago, paid a very smart entrepreneur who's got accounting and finance background to basically overhaul all of our business accounting and structuring and bookkeeping. And I feel like now we can predict trends of problems like, we're a bit light that month, well ahead of it actually being a reality. Whereas before, we've been through the stages of just running a year and then doing your end of year tax return and seeing how you got on. But that's not enough for us now. We've got too many plates spinning and too many moving parts.
Yeah, it's definitely important to be on top of your finances like that. And you have taken some risk with employing people. You've also got to pay yourself, right? And you've got all those people to pay at the end of the month. So how does it make you feel that you've got family members and livelihoods to support, and it all kind of rides on you, right, to push the business forward, to make sure you can cover all of that?
Yeah, I think we're Ben and I have always been massive advocates of, you'll probably underestimate what you can deliver in business in 5 years, but you'll overestimate what you can deliver in 1 year. Yeah. And I feel sort of like future setting goals and reverse engineering it and working on cash flows over and over again, I think gives us more comfort to bring people into the team and their livelihoods and putting that weight on our shoulders. At the end of the day, we have a very clear vision for the companies. And I suppose it's probably worth mentioning that every quarter we sit down, everyone in every company, so that's all 30, and Ben and I make a presentation on every business. We share where our accounts are looking, we share what our projections are, we're sharing what projects we've got coming up. There's obviously a bit of fun stuff in there as well, but we go through every step and we allow every team member to ask as many questions as they want. And to understand each and every business and the sort of sister companies that work and operate around them. And I feel that has been good for our sanity and giving us the comfort that we know where we're going and everyone's on board, but also for our staff so they can see the bigger picture and they can see, why and how, and what direction we're going in. We don't ever want someone to feel like they do this and they don't really understand what happens after that or before that. We think the more that they can understand, the better.
It's interesting that you do that, because the conversation about money, it's one of those things that people don't really talk about, right? Around the dinner table, no one talks about money and their own personal finances. And a lot of businesses, probably 99% of businesses, wouldn't share that with the rest of the team, but you guys do that. So it's quite interesting that you would do that. So being an entrepreneur and a business owner and having all of these quick decisions to make might not necessarily be the right decisions to make, but it's all about making those decisions if you're up against it. How do you deal with things like that?
Yeah, so decision making is obviously something that every business owner or every, even staff have to go through. I don't know if you caught that tooting. So we have always been protective of the numbers. So the way we looked at it is, we feel that so our development type of business, which is quite common nowadays, where someone goes out, basically finds a site and becomes a big sort of piecing everything together, bringing the right people in, including an investor or someone's money, and delivering the scheme, and whether they split that out or whatever they do, that's the modern type of SME developer in quite a traditional structure. we find that we always protected the numbers first, so we weren't worried about what the building looks like. The priority sort of schedule goes, if the numbers work and the worst case scenario is protected, we're comfortable with the project. We can worry about design and what it looks like and whether we can put our stamp on it and many more other elements to it after the fact that we've protected purely the numbers. So for us, we're very focused on really making sure that the numbers we have are dialed down, de-risked and attainable. So from our perspective, we know that once that's ironed out and we know that the numbers are protected, so we do stress testing models where we actually put our project through, figuratively, before we've bought it, certain scenarios to assess whether it's going to be risky or not. And we feel like that internal analysis enables us to make quicker decisions. And I'll give you an example of actually a project that we delivered in my opinion, and I hate the phrase because I think it was so overused during COVID, but unprecedented times. We were buying a block of 14 flats, and it was during the height of COVID when no one was buying anything. It literally, it was people didn't even know whether they were allowed to leave their house, let alone buy a site. And that was us still active and keep in contact with some agents that were working. And anyway, we got to the point where I thought we could have a proceedable deal on these block of 14 flats. And, someone asked me, a more senior sort of, I suppose you could say, sort of non-execy type contact that I have, sort of said, where's your risks in this? And we could buy the deal and it would cash flow the mortgage. There was no development risk, no planning risk. And I just thought, what have we got to lose? If everything really does go wrong with this COVID, I don't think anyone's going to be worried about, whatever ventures they're going to be delivering. So anyway, in that particular process, I feel like everyone was being fearful at a time. I sort of said, well, if our debt is covered and some, and we can hire increase the rents, refurbish the sites and take it a step further, I don't see a risk in that. And it's interesting you mentioned about decision making, because our non-exec does say the bigger your company gets, it's a bit like being in the difference between a Ford Fiesta and a supercar. Everything comes at you quicker, and you've got to be faster at deciding which sort of turns and tweaks and decisions you make. And it's exactly right. And I think the benefit that Ben and I have is we have scaled our business from scratch, and we, year on year did grow 100%, which sounds crazy, but if you deliver one project that's worth £1 million at the end, and then you deliver two the following year, that's not really, unsurmountable growth, in my opinion. We're now at the point where we can't grow that much, because 35 million to 70 million is a tall ask. But we've had sort of tasters and flavors of making decisions and making mistakes all the way as we go through. And what we always said, because when we set up the company 6 years ago, I couldn't lie about it. I was quite young, and we had quite a lot of doubt thrown on us, because Ben was, in his 20s, I was in my 20s. And we what we always said is what we lack in grey hairs, we make up for inactivity. We feel like we've lived 20 years in the last 6 because we've done so many projects and deals and structured deals. We've delivered over 67 projects. Wow. Through acquisition to sales in 6 years, which is active, and we've bought a site every 4 weeks on average. So I feel like that you can cover exponential ground if you put your mind to it, and become quicker at those decision making, and build rules within your business that if this site is worth X and it fits within this criteria, we can quickly act upon that.
From the outside looking in, right, it seems as though you guys have gone so far because there is 2 of you together working together. I don't mean that's like in a negative way. I think it's a great thing that you have partners within the business to help it grow even further. So yeah, hats off to you, man, for being able to do that. But you do have employees, right? And part of growing a business is relying on those employees to do their job, to do it well, and to do it how you maybe want them to do it, right? How do you take a step back from being like a micromanager and let them just get on with the job, and being able to trust them that they will do that job?
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier in the talk, none of us are trained really how to manage people, and everyone has their own management styles. But fundamentally, if you want to grow or be less required in your certain business, you need to bring people in. Ben and I, across the businesses, we acknowledge that the first person you should really bring in is someone to help with directorship administration. Yeah. So that's an office manager or a business manager. To take off the more mundane tasks, so you're getting paid for the sort of more monetizing, groundbreaking tasks. So my skills are acquisitions, negotiating, whether that be with an investor or a bank. So if I arrange a 1% discount on a £2 million facility, that is really well paid, valued work. Whereas if it's filling out a document that's for the insurance and all the details are on the last document we filled out last year, and it would take me an hour, I probably wouldn't even be as quick as some of our team are in doing that level of work. So first point is analysing what the business needs and making sure that the person you're bringing in is logical and makes sense, not only from the business perspective, but also mine and Ben's time allocation, where we are in the business. Ben mentioned in your interview, we split the business really clearly. So every business that we have a clear understanding of who's doing what. So I'm obviously, from a development perspective, acquisitions, the structure of the deal and the funding. And then as soon as it's acquired, it then moves over to Ben, who's the design, delivery and sales. So Ben knows what he needs in that side of the business, and I know what I need. We've got a business manager that sits over the group. We've got a marketing manager that sits over the group. I've got an assistant in the front end, which is an ex-quantity surveyor, and then Ben's got a project manager that sits alongside him and helps him deliver the scheme. So we sort of know where we're all situated in the company. Of course, you do have overlap, and I sometimes end up doing something that's completely irrelevant, but I know how it works, or I've gone to get a key cut, or whatever it may be. But as far as trusting the team, I can't see how a business owner can not trust someone to sort of grow and be take that job by the reins and have more guidance. For me, I think that your time is way better spent reviewing and helping an individual get the best out of that area of the business, than to sort of pick holes in them. And sometimes it is good to let them crack on and see how they get on and re-review it. It's weird though, because I've got a very close friend of mine, I was actually his best man at his wedding, said to me the other day, "But you're a control freak." And I thought to myself, he hasn't been in my business and seen that I'm not. I don't think I am. I think that it's really interesting that he's obviously seen me, and I do tend to have I have a handle on everything. I know where everything is at any given time, and I understand what's going on. And there's not really a part where it crops up and there's a decision to be made, and I don't understand how we've got to there. I normally understand the bigger picture. Yeah. So I would have said that that's slightly different to being a control freak, and a control freak is definitely not something I am. I do get bogged down with the mundane stuff and be like, why am I doing this now? I need to sort this out. Prime example is I'm currently in San Diego. I'm 8 hours behind the UK time. And it really used to stress me out that I'd wake up in the morning and I'd have between 200 and 300 emails in my inbox. And all I did with our office manager before I left is we built a process where she goes in and reviews my emails twice. She allocates them into different files. And the files read, urgent, not so urgent, 1 week reply, 2 week reply. And then she unsubscribes to anything that's not relative, and basically condenses my inbox down to a very bite-sized action list. And then I jump straight into it, and that is, she has full sight and control of all of my emails. Wow. And that's a bit of a game changer, because it means when I get in the morning and I get at my desk, and I do get up early, like this morning I got up at 4:45 because I like to get up a bit of work done, and then my day's clear. It's now about midday, so I know that I can work a few hours, get to the bottom of all the important stuff, and get everything moving. And then get on with enjoying my time out here and enjoying the sun. But that process is fully giving autonomy to someone in my team, working alongside them. They're then obviously supporting me, and I might ask them to do stuff. So by the end of today, I might ask, her name is Christina, to do a few things while I'm asleep and she's up. So it's fully working on what is the most efficient process.
That email trick that you just mentioned, I think I read that in the 4 Hour Work Week. Is that right? Is that out of that book?
Well, we actually, I have read the 4 Hour Work Week, but I can't actually remember that being a section in it. Maybe subliminally, I did read that, and I have used that.
It's in one of the books I've read anyway, but I have heard that before. It's a very good technique.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to share it with any listeners if they want to ping me a message and how we do it. I'm sure it would work very well with a virtual assistant as well. But ours is with my office manager, just while I'm away. She doesn't do that every day.
Well, while I mention books, and we will just wrap up shortly, sorry. But I just want to ask you, like we ask everyone, your top 3 book recommendations.
Yeah, for sure. So I actually noticed that I sent you these, and I watched back Ben's recording, and we have the same book in our recommendations.
Yeah.
So we'll start with that one, but I have a feeling I actually recommended it to him. And it's a really, really good book. It's called Built to Sell, and it's fundamentally a book about an organization that's run by a classic solopreneur, someone that does have a team around them, but they are the business and they run the business internally. And the Built to Sell book is about the operator of the company, the MD, realizing that the only way that they would get their business to be saleable is to automate everything that they do, and train the team up to what they do so that they can remove themselves from the business. It's quite common with self-employed individuals that if you remove them, the business is removed. So that's a really good book, and it's all about automating business, training up team, building something that I was always told by non-execs, and I think I've read it in a book somewhere, that a good business sustains itself when you're not in it, but a great business grows when you're not in it. And I really feel that Ben and I are sort of coming on to that point in XP surveys, like it's starting to grow without us. We're not surveyors. We can't output the product in there. We obviously do dive in and create a mess and try new things and do what we need to do, but that's a really key one. So Built to Sell is my first one, which is similar to Ben's, the same as Ben's. 2 others which are different to Ben's. One really sort of pivotal book that I read very early on in my sort of entrepreneurship or business ownership is a book called Your Life, Your Legacy by Roger Hamilton. And it's fundamentally, it's a play on psychometric testing. So it's analyzing you as an individual and then where you fit within a business. And it uses really successful entrepreneurs as a case study to match up to your skill set. So for an example, I'm a creator star mechanic, which basically means that I like my numbers. I don't mind engaging with external people, whether that be sales or bringing in deals. But then also I come up with ideas, and that is exactly how I front end acquisitions, because I like the sales part of it. I like studying the numbers. I like negotiating. And I like closing off that deal, and then that's my sort of capacity. Whereas I feel Ben is probably a lot more of a slower burn personality, that he likes finishing things off. I don't. I like starting them and then handing them over to someone else. But I think the realization of understanding yourself and getting the best out of yourself is transferable in any company or any role or even in any work. So that was a really eye-opening book, and it helps you understand why people are successful in the ways that they've been. The way, for example, they talk about Warren Buffett, and they talk about other entrepreneurs and how they've got to their position and why their character suits that role. One more, and it's actually very relative to you talking about growing a team and outsourcing stuff, which is a book called Who Not How. And it's all about bringing the right resources in around you in your life or in your business to make sure that rather than thinking how am I going to do this, you think who's going to do this for me. And it also helps from a almost like pulling people together and using your network as well. It's sort of, rather than thinking of a solution is how. And I know that a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs think that the best way to get something done is to do it yourself. But sometimes there is more effective ways of pulling in the right people, specifically in your team, to sort of overcome challenges or work on particular things.
Nice. Well, I appreciate that, Jack. Thank you. And I will let you get off and enjoy the rest of your holiday. And really appreciate your time today. And thank you for joining us on the show.
Thanks very much, Tom.
Cheers, man. So, guys, I hope you got a lot of value out of that. What I'm going to do is put a few links down in the description, how you can find Jack's podcast and get in touch with him and follow him on social media, as well as his book recommendations. They'll be down there as well. So thank you again for tuning in. Appreciate you for being a subscriber, and we'll see you again on the next episode.